Looking at all these changes, I'm wondering what would be the factors that caused the final disappearance of each writing system?
That's a very difficult question to answer. We really have to speculate. I think we can say that there was a general decline in traditional Egyptian religion in the Roman period, and that was certainly driven by economics. The Romans funded the temples much, much more meanly, at least from the 2nd century onwards. There's a huge decline there. But it's very irregular. People seem to have diversified their religion, and so there were many religions in the Roman Empire. And there are things like Manichaeism, which were disseminated from about the 3rd century. The 3rd century, I think, is the crucial century when things fell apart. And that's not just true of Egypt. The Roman Empire as a whole went through severe difficulties in the 3rd century, and this was part of it. And this is when Christianity is coming in. In Alexandria, Christianity appears to be older, but everything we know about Alexandria and Christianity really comes from the writings of the Church Fathers, disseminated much later from other sorts of sources. It's difficult to compare. We don't have much direct evidence for Christianity in Egypt until somewhere around the end of the 3rd century. So it doesn't look as if Christianity was the main factor. There are 2 very important books by David Frankfurter. And one is called Religion in Roman Egypt, I think. I would have to check. And the other one is called Christianizing Egypt. And he is the person who's really done most work on these processes.
Then how about old writing systems, used by the native Egyptians? So in the course of time, the native Egyptians discarded, may I use the term, expression discarded? They discarded the hieratic system and moved on to the demotic. Then what would be the reason?
Hieratic was writing classical Egyptian mainly. It could write late Egyptian too, but that was obsolete also. And so the spoken language was an enormous distance from what was written. Demotic wrote probably something that was still quite a long way from what was spoken, but less far. It was an easier script to write, but it's a very professional script. It's not used by large numbers of people because everyone who does demotic says you have to do it every day or else you forget it. That's probably worse for us than for ancient Egyptians. But even so, it's a very professional sort of script. So ordinary people, they were illiterate. And in a sense, it's irrelevant.
So it is due to the developing stages of one language.
Demotic was very occasionally used to write other languages, but it's a very rare phenomenon. It's probably not of much general importance. And we do know that the Egyptians in the Ptolemaic and Roman periods, they really tried to keep their scripts apart. So Demotic has very few loanwords from Greek. And we even have a hieroglyphic text mentioning Alexandria, and it calls it the city which is by the sea in a particular district and known as Rakote, which was the indigenous word for Alexandria. So they managed to avoid naming Alexandria in hieroglyphs. And so this nationalism also probably was bad for the preservation of hieroglyphs.
We can also see internal factors and also external factors in the disappearance of a certain writing system.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just a sample from the London Leiden Papyrus, where you've got there the Demotic at the top, the Greek in the middle, and then more Demotic underneath. Therefore, the use of Greek letters, as you had it on that papyrus, is what underlies the development of Coptic. And as the local people find that Christianity is a good way to reassert their identity as Egyptians, then Coptic takes off, but in Greek letters, and the Egyptian script is lost by that point.
So I have two more questions.
Yep.
As you know, the last hieroglyph was inscribed at the Temple of Philae in 394 CE. Then Egyptian hieroglyphs were forgotten for almost 1,400 years.
Indeed.
How could one of humanity's greatest intellectual achievements vanish so completely from collective memory?
I suppose here we have a big problem, which is that all the hieroglyphs and demotic and so on, as I said at the beginning, they're from provincial places. In the big cities, the development probably looked a bit different. In Alexandria, it certainly will have looked different. So in Alexandria, indigenous Egyptian was very much a minority thing. And so I think this is partly to do with rulers and ruled. And the rulers of the Roman period didn't do hieroglyphs or anything. Hieroglyphs were used in Rome and in Italy in the 1st century CE and in the 2nd, but only by probably not more than 10 people or something like that. And so there wasn't really a transmission of hieroglyphs outside Egypt. And Egypt was just a province of the Roman Empire. And I think that so the wider Roman context is very important to this disappearance. But the idea that there was an Egyptian script was transmitted, and that they had several variants, that was known too, and Greeks told us all about that, and that ultimately helped decipherment.
Oh, I see.
But it took hundreds of years to recover and sort of put that information together. My own view is that the Rosetta Stone is slightly less important than people say. I think they would have deciphered it anyway. But the Rosetta Stone was a big help, the stimulus.
So would you elaborate on that? I mean, it's very interesting, aspect of...
The first decipherment of an ancient script in the beginning of the 19th century was by Grotefend, who deciphered Old Persian. And he did that from lists of rulers of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, which were preserved in Greek. And he applied his guesses to the script. You could do the same with hieroglyphs. You knew who all the Ptolemies were from Greek texts. And somebody in the 18th century already said that the cartouche perhaps enclosed a king's name. Basically, that's what Champollion worked with. And he wasn't the only one, of course. So I think that somebody else would have done that without having the wider context of the Rosetta Stone.
That's the point I like to hear.